Welcome back to Sunrise DDS, continuing with our focus on development within the polity and politics, particularly. As you've seen there, Folashade Aliyu joins us next. She is the National Campaign Secretary of the NNPP. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Well, yes, we did see the launch of the campaign council yesterday, but first this morning, this huge conversation about INEC raising fresh alarm over possibility of, who knows, elections not holding, not what anybody wants to hear, but we should hear from you. What is the thinking within your party, for instance, for this kind of narrative, or for you, perhaps if your party hasn't responded yet to it?
Well, thank you for having me once again. Just like was said by the previous guest, we've seen this severally. We shouldn't get used to it. We should get better. And I think that a lot of people will be concerned when they see this kind of headings about, I mean, we have 40-something days to the elections. So that means that we still have enough time to do what we need to do.
But in the several meetings that INEC holds with political parties and your party, what kind of narrative comes through? Has this ever occurred or been raised in the meeting where elections may not hold, given these kind of scenarios?
Well, considering the stipulations of the list of activities that needs to happen before handling over, I think they have a little bit of space to adjust in certain areas. But also, we all should be concerned about the security, you know, not only for INEC purposes, but even for the voters. So if INEC is saying that if certain things continue to happen like a threat to their facilities, so that means that we all need to participate to make sure we protect that interest. Because I'm sure that INEC is just not coming up with the fact. It's a matter of, look, let's all sit down, let's agree, let's protect our democracy. That's the way we say it.
Now to the launch yesterday. Why yesterday? I mean, many would have thought, this should have happened a long time ago, but yesterday? Or is it what, better late than never now, or what?
No, actually, that's not the case. It's not the case of better late than never. It's a case of the fact that, look, we have done our cross-country. Starting from the date that INEC released for campaign. That's, you know, there's a time frame to start and end campaign. So it was strategic for us that we do it yesterday. And another reason for that is that we have a lot of people joining the party, wanting to be on the campaign, on the PCC, the campaign organization. And one of the policies that we've put in place is that, look, we are not just going to put any names. We need to find out who these people are. Are they interested? They're dedicated to us. Do they understand our cause and our principles, our beliefs, and what the party stands for, and what our presidential candidate stands for as a person?
Perhaps.
So all of those names, more than 1,000 names, you have to check them, you have to call them, you have to get them to agree.
You have 1,000 names on your campaign council?
We have committees, and, you know, it's not everybody that will come on the publication. You understand? So we have committees, we have a lot of volunteers.
But you say you've done your cross-country.
Yes.
By that, you mean you've already gone around the entire country?
We have gone through, except for 3 states. That means out of 36 plus Abuja, we have gone through 35 locations. We have gone through more than 400 local governments. Because we go on the road. We don't fly all the time, and we don't have the money for the media to follow us all the time.
Yes, but I mean, then some people would say that at the end of the day, why do you then have a campaign council? If you've already done the campaigns without the council, what do you need a campaign council
some of those people, some of the people, what happened yesterday, I don't want to say, it's just for formality, so that everybody knows we give out the letters and all of that. We already have a lot of volunteers. You know, we started through the process of the national TNM, the national movement, and then we joined with NNPP, and then, you know, we have certain things that have been going on. And then we look at the calendar of INEC and say, okay, how do we, you see, because the point is that if you're looking at the time and looking at going from village to village, going on to the countryside, going to the city centers, it's, you know, if you're looking at 774 local governments, even if you divide it, it's not easy. So you have to, but like I said, we've gone through a little over 400 local governments.
So what is the campaign council going to be doing now?
They're already working. Just like I said, we have some more people joining us, and we don't want to make it segmental. So what we decided is there's going to be a cutoff point where we now come up publicly to say, okay, this is our campaign organization and this is how it's going to work.
Right. So for you, why did you decide to align with NNPP?
First thing, actually, for me, if you ask me, the singular reason why I joined that party is because of the principles of Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso on education. On education. Because you find that if we get our educational structure in place, a lot of things, whether you want to talk about industrialization, you want to talk about manufacturing, you want to talk about security, when you have informed public, it's easier.
So what is it with him and education? What policy has he executed before, or does he have that makes you think that this is it?
Okay. There was several years ago, even at that point, I've not even met him. I came from the US. I was part of his survey. And we find out that his education policy in Kano State then, as a governor, was exceptional. Because his policy is that no child should be left behind. And of course, it may not be 100% totally to the last child, but at least you'll see that the government is making effort to make sure. And I think that he also had some policies in place that as a parent, if you do not allow your children to go to school. So that's one aspect of it. But on a personal basis, even when he was not a governor anymore, he still sent people on scholarship to different parts of the world. So if you believe...
But several people do that in politics.
Well, several people do that, but what's the quantity and what's the consistency? The consistency in doing that, and how do you sustain that? If somebody says, look, I live for what I believe in, which is educating that child that would have not had opportunity. And you know, what is amazing to me, though, is that some of the people that are in leadership today, they went through that process. Somebody sponsored them. Somebody helped them. Especially from the western part of Nigeria, at least that I know that I come from. If not for the Awolowo Scholarship Program, a lot of these people would have been something else today. And I don't understand why we cannot find a place in our heart, even as human beings, to see that this facility is not even good for anything. I don't want to relate us to, call some names like, I mean, you see some classrooms, you can't put anything in that classroom. How do you want this child to learn? And how do you want that child to think of Nigeria in the future? Because I said to people, I said, look, even our children that are not born here, some of our children that are, for instance, in the military, in the US, in the UK, they are so proud and bold because they know that if anything happens to them, that country will take care of them.
So still on that education, but this time nationally.
Yes.
What would you say is the singular most important component, or what he wants to focus on if he's elected president of this country?
Well,
for education.
The first thing we're looking at is, based on the statistics that are out there, talking about 20 million children out of school. How do you put them in school? Of course, there should be facilities for them, so we are proposing that we are going to build 500 classrooms across the country. You cannot build classrooms and not train teachers. So we have a template of how we want to train the teachers.
Is this for primary, secondary?
The unity schools.
Federal government colleges.
The unity schools, because you can't do anything with the schools that you're not in control over. That's one. Then number two, we're looking at the fact that it's not just for the purpose of opening universities all over the place. When you have one, even the ones that we were very proud of, we can't even put them anywhere on the world stage. So what our program is focusing on is that let's find a way to refertilize, restore the integrity of these institutions, and then before we begin to expand, if it's necessary.
So whilst you're planning or making, and that's the reason why you have joined the NNPP,
yes.
You say the program on education,
yes.
You do know that a lot of other things are of utmost importance. Security
Definitely.
is one of the biggest on the list right now. Is what is threatening the polls, even for INEC. So is your candidate also looking at that issue of security?
Oh, definitely. Well, governance is multi-level, and you have to be able to multitask. There is no one thing. Well, of course, you can put them in priority. But in governance, there's so many things that has to be going at, at the same time. And that's why we're talking about leadership. Now, what kind of leadership are we looking for in this next election? And for me, I think that even when we're talking about leadership, you have to look at somebody that is humane, somebody that is caring, somebody that is accessible, objective, has integrity, and not live for himself. Somebody that is very selfless. So in terms of security, if you have gone through our blueprint, we have in there that, look, the size of our security personnel right now is not sufficient for us, and we all know. And so that's why we are proposing that we will increase the police and the military, and of course the paramilitary all together with the police, 1 million and 1 million for the military. And people will ask, what would they do? There's so much police can do. There's so much the military can do in the development of a nation like ours.
I'm looking at the fact that you also have international experience. I mean, you've lived outside the shores of this country. I see that NEEDCOM lists you amongst the people in diaspora. And I'm just a little curious as to whether, I mean, you have stated why you're a member of the NNPP and why you believe this is the presidential candidate to go with. But if you're very pragmatic and you look at how, say, politics works in the West,
yes,
you know that oftentimes it's a two-horse race,
yes,
between the Democrats and the Republicans. In the UK, you see it go between Labour Party, Conservative. Sometimes you might get another party if they come into coalition with one of these two major parties. But oftentimes it is one of the majors that will, usually take the day. When you come to Nigerian politics, it's only very recently we saw that the APC was able to take the, the votes from the PDP, which had been in power for 16 years. Looking at the chances of your candidate and looking at the number of candidates we have, 18 of them, I mean, going into the presidential polls, what do you think the chances of your candidate really is when you look at, or what are his chances when you look at, how politics usually would work?
Well, I think our chances are very great, and I'll tell you why. Number one, you have to look at the leadership, the candidate, the leadership, the experience is history in terms of leadership and performance. You have to also look at how diverse his knowledge is. And you've got to look at the fact that is this somebody that understands what's going on? Because, when you talk about leadership in Nigeria, let me say a little about that, is that, well, we elect or select leadership based on certain things, religion, so on and so forth, languages, the same tribe and the rest of it, but we are the crossroad, critical crossroad.
Yeah, I'm looking at his history, and he's been, all of the things that he's achieved is achieved either in the BDP or in the APC.
Yes.
He's not achieved it as, I mean, there's no room for independent candidacy or even on a smaller party. It has just been on these two major platforms. He was minister in the PDP, he was governor in the PDP, he became governor, I don't know, I can't remember what party now, but I know he came back a second time, and then, he joined the APC. He was a part of the presidential primaries in 2015. So, I mean, it was a governor, I beg your pardon, it was senator on the platform of the APC.
That's correct.
So when you look at his history, it points to the fact that all that he has achieved on these platforms. Why do you then think that the NNPP, which is not exactly, it's a national party, yes, but it's not exact, doesn't have the spread which you would need, for instance, maybe membership in the National Assembly. Why do you think it's going to make a serious inroad in 2023?
The fact of the matter is that the dynamics of politics in Nigeria is changing. And let me start from where you say two major parties or 4 or 18. The dynamics of elections and interaction and awareness is changing in Nigeria. People realize that, look, all of those things that you mentioned about Senator Kwankwaso, yes, he may have achieved it, but it's still the same person. The same person in the sense that, well, you belong to a party and you see that they're drifting. And he has said it severally. And you are not, even as a party member, you are not able to lay your hands on the serious achievement. You know, let me tell you something. Government in certain area, when you look at the civil service, there are certain things that is constant in government. It doesn't matter who comes. When you come with your own ideas and you come with your own vision, and of course, the people around you key into that vision. So it is very important that you have a very visionary.
What do you think, what are the suggestions you have in terms of poverty? I know that you have been involved in poverty alleviation and even measurement of poverty, you know, indexes before now. What do you think, what singular move do you think your candidate can make were he to make it as president at the polls that would make a significant difference in alleviating poverty?
Okay. You see, most of our programs is, what do I say, people-driven. People-driven. And when you have people-driven ideas, let me go to one of the very important, which I think it will be very important for people to understand across the nation, our CP, Community Participation and Reorientation Program. The reason why this program is really very good is that you get people engaged, you get to know yourself in your communities, you get to support each other's business. For instance, when he was the governor in Kano, what he did was that, look, we're going to feed the children are going to have school uniforms, they're going to have shoes and the rest of it, but the people within the community decides. The people within the community supplies. So that money stays in the community. So for me, poverty alleviation is not giving somebody 50,000 or 5,000 and then you forget about it. Because sometimes you give people 50,000, if you give them at the wrong time, they use it for the wrong thing. And in a lot of the situations that we have in Nigeria, you don't have a means of really following and monitoring and seeing the actual feedback. I mean, people can cook up feedback, but you don't, because that's not part of the plan. So if you put if you put the monitoring process in place that you can follow up as a community, like Asokoro now, if you have some leadership that tells you, this is what we need in this community, this is how we want to do it, these are the people, you know. So it's very difficult for people not to do the right thing. So we have a sustainable plan on trade and investment for people, and of course for grassroots community poverty alleviation.
We still have a sizable percentage of undecided voters.
Yes.
They'll be watching, trying to find out, figure out, which party do I vote for?
Yes.
They could look at the APC and feel, okay, well, they're the ruling party. Some may go that way because they may think levers of power, several things may be going for them. They may look at the PDP. Well, they've been there before. Pendulum may swing their way because people may not be happy with the current situation in the country. There are those who will also look at the Labour Party, seeing how so many people are gravitating towards that in the particular age bracket. And then they look at the NNPP. So what will they be? What would you say to undecided voters who are not exactly sure whether they should pitch their tent with NNPP? If they say, look, what is NNPP's path to victory? Why should I vote NNPP? Can they outdo these other political parties who I see having quote-unquote momentum, so to speak?
Well, thank you so very much for that question. Yes, because even if you look at the, we see all kind of data, all kind of reports, all kind of polls out there. A lot of undecided voter, and that tells you about that poll. That's, you know, I don't want to talk about the accuracy of it because I'm also a data analyst myself. So when you have polls and you have that, you know, a wide percentage of undecided, it has a lot of impact on the result that you're putting out there. So for us at NNPP, we believe that Nigeria has gotten to the point that we do not have to look at the fact that it's north and south, is this and that. Look at the principles, the manifesto of the party, the presentation of the leaders, the leadership of the party. Look at the people that are involved around that leadership, because it's not a one-man show. And look at the integrity, the selflessness. Like in our party, you know, like everybody will say, it's not that we have money to do the basic things that we have to do. But if we're all saying that we don't want Nigeria to be a money-backed political environment, I would tell people, look, if they give you whatever amount they give you, somebody has bought the future of your children. But the point is, if you look at the history of our principal, Senator Rabiu Musa Kongo, so you will see that apart from education, when you talk about health services, even while it was out of government, it has, training centers for midwives and all, things like that. That shows you that somebody, I will ask myself, what kind of leadership do we need right now? We need the kind of leadership that can say, look, Nigeria can be better. We can build a better Nigeria. We have the resources. I have the people. We have the skill sets, as a nation. And we have the money. People will say, where would you get the money? Look at just a simple situation. Somebody is talking, I saw on the one of the newspapers, talking about 77 trillion, deficit. Is that what it is? That's a lot of money. And within that space, we are spending so much money now to rebrand or reshape or recolor. So what I'm saying, in other words, is that somebody that can look and say, look, we need to be creative. Creative in the sense that if there's a will, there's a way. So for you as an undecided voter right now, I want to say that if you look at our educational policy, the foreign policies, investment policies, and most importantly, a leader that is accessible, that listens, that understands that it takes, some certain level of people to make it, and a leader that can deal with the high and the highest and the lowest within the society. Just like I'm telling you, we go on the road. We do this cross-country so that you can, when you see people's face, it's a different feeling. You can read in the newspaper, on the TV and everything, on social media, but when you see them and you feel them,
does the candidate travel by road as well?
Yes. We just did Abuja to Lokoja to Delta, Enugu, and back from Asaba.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Folashade Aliyu is the National Campaign Secretary of the NNPP. All the best.
Thank you very much.
We are back in a moment, and we will be focusing on the Edo passengers kidnapped. Remember the train passengers? That's up next. Stay with us.